I'm here to inspire you to read the most amazing of books, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And in case you were wondering, I have read this book at least 4 times. And I was inspired to read this book because my brother read it. And he was like, Marty, you've got to read this book. And so I was like, okay, I'll read it. And I got to tell you guys this. Nothing would make me happier than to have one of you read this book because you saw this review and were inspired to read it. And it would be sweet to get a couple of your insights that you gain when you decide to read this book. Now, I know a lot of you are being forced to read this book as part of some curriculum. I'm really sorry that you're being forced to read this book. Nobody should be forced to read a book. But my only advice to you is find a way to trick your brain into allowing you to read this book. I don't want to give it all away to you, but this book has a little bit of everything. I mean, it has some crazy people. A lot of crazy people. It has sibling rivalry, jealousy, hate, fights, attempted murder. It has some successes too. You know, people have these amazing experiences and this growth and this insight, and you know, babies are born, families are formed. You know, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's also like a lot of really bad stuff too. Like it's really definitely got like a pendulum, you know, of good and then bad. There's prostitution, right? Brothels. I know Steinbeck's pretty famous for writing about brothels and prostitution. There's a lot of social deviance, struggle for power, manipulation, control. Kind of has it all. Steinbeck's a pretty dang good writer. Like, I'm going to say that emphatically. Like, he knows his stuff. I don't know for a fact if he was a big follower of Carl Jung, but I believe he was, because this book is full of these archetypes, you know. Adam Trask's kind of the main character. He is definitely an archetype. He has a brother named Charles. They both have different moms, same dad. One thing I found very interesting about the story is that the dad was able to see early on that there were certain things that Adam needed that Charles didn't need. And so he raised each boy individually. And I thought that was very insightful, because a lot of parents think that they can just raise their kids all the same way. But this particular dad knew that there were things Adam needed that Charles already had, and there were things that Charles needed that Adam already had. And so he raised those boys in that manner. And that was pretty cool. And they had an experience early on which created some of the sibling rivalry, where it was their dad's birthday and Charles gave him this really cool pocket knife, and Adam gave him a dog, like a puppy. And it really affected Charles, because he really felt like their dad favored Adam over him just because of this dog, you know. And I don't think Adam really cared. I think Adam just gave him a dog, you know. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to give him this dog so that he'll love me more than he'll love Charles. But Charles interpreted it that way because he never saw the dad play with a pocket knife, you know. And that's interesting, right? I asked my brothers, hey, did you ever feel like there was sibling rivalry in our family? They both said no. We never gave our dad any presents at all. Just kidding, we did. But further along in the story, you know, you get to meet these different other archetypes, like Samuel Hamilton. And then there's this character named Lee, super cool Chinese guy, born here in the States. Adam went on to have a couple of kids of his own, Caleb and Aaron. And they had a little sibling rivalry as well. And I did see in a documentary that Steinbeck hung out with, ran in the same circles as Joseph Campbell, who is very well known for The Hero's Journey. And you'll see Steinbeck does follow a lot of the same things as The Hero's Journey. Like, this story kind of follows it. And Samuel Hamilton is kind of like the Yoda, and Lee is kind of like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the story. They both have these deep insights, and they have these great conversations with each other as well as with Adam. There is arguably the most interesting character in the story happens to be a villainess. And I've read a lot of books this villainess takes it to a new low. She is diabolic and evil personified, and at the same time, like she, in many instances, I almost feel sorrow for her because she was definitely born without something, missing something. She really just had this thirst for power and control. No real thought for connection or love or acceptance. At a very young age, she learns how to use her body. And when I say young age, like they don't give the exact age. She was in her early teens. And she uses her body to manipulate boys and then men to do things that they would not normally ever do. The story's pretty juicy. Now, interestingly enough, the story is kind of a slow burn. It's not like your traditional Dan Brown novel where you're just flipping page to page. This is more like a classical piece of music where it slowly builds. Again, Steinbeck's a master of character development. He's a master at giving you insights into all these different archetypes. And even the anecdotal characters that don't have like a main part in the story, he does a good job of describing some of their inner turmoil. He really does a good job describing all of the Hamilton family. The sheriff gets a decent description. The people that run the brothels get a really good description. Some of the other just passerbys in the stories. Steinbeck still takes the time to let you know who these people are and where they fit in this overall story. And you really get a new perspective on humanity and people. We all know about the persona, the outward face or mask that we show everyone in our day-to-day public lives. But this story does a good job at getting behind the mask and getting really into the nitty-gritty of who people are and their soul. But the main theme of the story goes back to Adam and Eve. And it goes back to their sons, Cain and Abel. And again, you see a lot of the foreshadowing. Cain starts with a C, Abel with an A, Adam's got an A, Charles, his brother, has a C, Aaron, the son, A, Caleb or Cal, C. So you see like a repetitive theme. And again, the sibling rivalry, the two boys trying to gain acceptance of their dad. And so Lee, along with Samuel Hamilton, begins to analyze the story of Cain and Abel and goes back to the original translation. And this is the sort of the crux of the whole story. They realize that in the story of Cain and Abel, the Lord uses the word timshel, which translated into English means that thou mayest. And the debate that they had going on was, are people destined to either be good or are they destined to always be bad? And when they got into this concept of timshel and really begin to identify what does timshel mean, it translates into that thou mayest. And when you take away this perceived, already predestined, forced belief that you will only be good or you will only be bad, and you throw in this idea that you get to choose, that thou mayest, it's quite liberating. Because it's no longer about what my parents told me or about what my church told me or about what my teacher told me or about what my friend told me. It's my life. I'm accountable to me. I get to choose. I get to choose. Now sometimes I might choose wrong. I might choose a bad or evil path. But that doesn't mean that I'm destined to always be evil or always be bad. I get to choose to also be good. That phrase, timshel, that thou mayest, is so important for us as humanity to understand. In the story, we see these characters, they do struggle with, am I bad or am I good? Am I destined to be bad or am I destined to be good? And there's a whole play on all of that. Again, ultimately, I hope that you feel inspired to read this book and that it helps you to see not just the black and white words, but the message that's found in between the words, the message that it's your life. And guess what? You get to choose whether it's successful or not. You get to choose whether you're remembered for doing good and great things, or if you get remembered for being kind of a bad person. Again, as I mentioned early on, I hope that some of you, one of you, 3 of you, 20 of you read the book and then take a minute to put down what you got out of the book. If you've already read the book and you're just looking at reviews like I did for a while, feel free to let me know what you found important or insightful about the book. Feel free to share with me who you think your favorite characters are and why. And if you want to get really creative, I'd love to get more insight into what a lot of you guys think about the villainess. Because she really is, in some ways, the most interesting character to study. Again, largely because I feel like personally I'm not really evil. I feel like I'm a pretty good guy. And so I'd like to get more insight into that. Feel free to drop any comment that you'd like. I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you for watching my video. Have a great day. Bye.